Yeah.
Now, how's the tour going, Ryan?
Now,
you've been away.
I did like maybe 3 weekends and then 6 one-nighters. It was cool though. I'm like in New York. When I did the weekend here, I sold like almost 1,000 tickets. So that was
Unreal.
Wow.
basically, you know what the funny part is, and I don't know if it's like that there, but the clubs, the big thing is everyone wants you to do weekends as opposed to one-nighters, right? So in a lot of places, I'm at the point where like a one-nighter is sick. Like if I do a 250 place, I sell it out and it's like sick. Maybe you add a second one that maybe you do 2, but it's always like the better deals are if you can do the 6 nights, and there's not enough people to sell out clubs as there is clubs with shows. So it's everyone's, making offers for that. But then you go from a guy who's doing all sold out shows to a guy who's, like I did Florida, for example, and sold, I think it was like 300 tickets and I did 7 shows. So it's like, whatever, plus whatever walk up. But I remember the guy was calling, and it was like some tiny town in Florida. It's 30,000 people. I remember the guy calling the agent was like, hey, could you post more about this, blah, blah. And I was like, how many tickets did they sell? It was like 300 and 350 or something. And I was like, this phone call should be like, holy shit, you sold 350 tickets in this town. But it's like the system's forcing you to, so I think I might have to rejig that a little bit. But in general, it's been awesome. And just even, I like hang out with everyone after the show, like every night. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, dude, it's so cool to even do that. Yeah, and it seems like when you're on the internet, it sometimes just seems so like negative, and you start thinking like, are my fans this or what? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you hang out with them, and you're just like, oh, these are all just very normal people, and blah blah.
Well, yeah, because
that's what I find as well.
Sometimes like you'll make a video.
I have really young fans, like I guess, like how old are you? Like my fans, I'm only 25, so I get a lot of like people who are like 18 to 25.
Yeah,
like that's
everyone's fans. Yeah, is them a little younger. I think most of mine are probably college to 30 sort of thing. Yeah, and but a lot of like college people, a lot of people that are 25, 26, a lot of that, but. A decent amount of 30, pretty good mix because they all know you from something different,
It's funny to me that you were like 30,000 is like a really small town. That is a small town here still, but I've been doing like those for the last 2 weeks, like just towns that have like 40, 50,000 people. Yeah, I mean, because there's only 5. We were talking about
this 5 cities, bro.
You guys can do 50-day tours of like cities. We have 5 cities, and even still, like Hobart sells like shit really compared to everywhere else. Like Tasmania is the island one down the bottom. Like that doesn't sell like a city does in. But even still, like how many people are in your cities? Like our cities are like 1 million people.
No, you can really like tour forever here if you want to. You know what I mean?
There's enough. I'm so jealous.
There's put it this way. There's at least 50 places, so you could easily, or not 50. Sorry, like 350 places that actually are almost markets.
Because that's also like in Australia. If we have 5 cities, you could do like a solid 30 or 40 day tour, right? And that's like everywhere in the country, pretty much. But that means also if you do that, you need a brand new hour the next year. Because otherwise people are going to see the same shit. Whereas in America, if you have 300 cities, you could do the same hour for like 3 years and then slowly work on it. Whereas in Australia, sometimes it's a bit of a scramble.
Do you do that? Like, you don't do a new hour every year?
Yeah. We've both, Luke and I, have been doing an hour every year since we started.
System.
That's the way our festival system works.
Yeah, that's
every comedian. It's kind of dumb. Like I'm thinking of after next year's one having a year off because I found like my show was so much better this year because of COVID.
Yeah.
So we all got cancelled last year, obviously, like 2020. And in that year off, like I didn't write that much in lockdown, but like I just felt like I had more time. I wasn't scrambling to get the new hour. So I felt like the 2 once every second year system is great. I'm thinking of once the world gets back, doing 1 year in Australia, touring that, and then heading overseas and like doing a few shows. There's like New Zealand, the UK, maybe America. I don't know how you get a visa there, but I'll figure it out.
You can get a visa easily.
Yeah. Ryan was helping me out with it before COVID happened.
You got to do it. Yeah, the O1 visa, you guys could get no problem.
Yeah.
Well, you're not even lying. It's like you just apply, you have all the stuff, and you have the actual tour dates. Like there's not,
Yeah.
I thought you had to get like an extraordinary talent one or something like that.
Yeah,
that's what that is.
Stuff like you have a big audience. have
Right.
like, for example, you need to here would be one example of a thing that you need. There's 10 categories, you only need to have 2 of them, and one of them is like you've won an award, one of them is people in your field think
The
that you're
Loogies.
what's the Loogies? Oh,
We have
That's our
own-
award show.
We have our own Luke and Lewis award show. where
yeah,
just-
we want a loogie.
Yeah.
Dude, people put the most bullshit awards on their thing. One of them is like you've made a decent amount of money in your field, and then like literally more than 30 grand a year is you would.
Well, it's
qualify
just
for
a
that.
filter to go if you come here, will you pay tax?
Money, yeah.
Basically,
Yeah, but you don't even with the O1. You're not a resident. You don't have to pay taxes.
okay, I'm
3
filling it out
years.
tomorrow.
Yeah, you don't pay taxes in America when you have an O1. It's only if you get a green card. But I mean,
Right.
if you're going to be back and forth and all that stuff, like there's not really any difference. There is a few tiny differences, but if you're not planning on, you could do that, and if you after 3 years then apply for your green card. and
I think
what a
that's
lot
what
of
I
people
think that's what both of us kind of want to do. I definitely
what
want
I-
to get to New York because I was in New York for like 1 week and LA for 1 week, and I met all of these incredibly amazing comedians and made all these connections. And I'm like, oh, if I just do this like 3 times a year or whatever, even if it's for 2 weeks, it
Yeah.
would be super helpful. And then collaborating and doing podcasts in person and just getting to do actual clubs because we have in our country we've got 3 clubs, I think, in the country that
We
That's
have more than
crazy.
that. We have like 4 or 5, but yeah.
I know a lot of
It's not
Canadians that
many.
go and do the run in Australia. Like they always say there's money to be made in just kind of being a comedian that's touring that doesn't even have an audience.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
if
because
you're
our
in Australia,
festivals
if you're
will
not
push you.
Australian, you'll sell tickets.
Oh,
Our Australians like still have that thing in them where they go, "Wow, he has an accent." Like if you
Yeah.
talk about coming off,
I don't
the
have an
plane-
accent. You guys have accents.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, yeah, you're normal. We're weird.
it's so funny. Like people will like. There's comedians who live here, right, but pretend to be American. Like they'll do the gala and
Come
be like, "Man,
on.
you Australians like do this and you're animals." And I'm like, "Dude, I know where you live. I see you with kids."
That's so funny.
It's
Yeah.
hilarious because they've just made careers here.
That's
Um,
wild. Can you imagine the other way around? Like a guy in America putting on a fake Australian accent and be like, Americans are stupid.
Yeah. No. The guy, the person, the people
is
are
American,
Americans who come.
But they've
over.
lived here for decades.
There's
Oh,
just
okay.
Americans that have come over in like the 90s and then gone, I'm going to set up shop here because they love it.
I know some, that
Yeah.
go there a
Yeah.
lot, and some of them that just stay there, like the one guy was telling you in the COVID prison. But yeah, I mean, for me, Toronto, I've done a lot of stuff there, but when I came here, it feels like for me, what I described it as, it felt like taking ankle weights off.
Yeah, I feel like that's absolutely what I felt as well. Because also, even like, obviously, there's more opportunities and more clubs and more paying things and whatever. There's all that shit, which is amazing. But then also, I felt when I did 2 club sets, I felt the audience was just so much more educated on how to be an audience than like a lot of other places I've been. Like if you go to a regional Australian town, sometimes people are like, "Oh, are we allowed to make noise?
Oh.
Like, can we laugh or
They don't know
do
what
we
it
have to be
is.
quiet?"
So I've been doing regional Queensland these last 2 weeks, which is like about as some people would say as rough as it gets. It's not that bad, right? People
Yeah.
talk it up. But my opener will be like, all right, who's seen comedy before? And like 25% of the crowd will cheer.
Mm.
And they're like, all right, who's never seen comedy before? And then 75% of the crowd will be like, like
Yeah.
most of my people who come to my shows from the internet, it's the first ever comedy show because they're like 18 and nothing ever comes to their town.
Comedy's like an American thing, like originally, right? So maybe it's
Sure.
more like embedded in the culture. But yeah, is it more sort of? I've seen even some of like you guys and your friends posting clips, and sometimes it almost seems like a college party. Sometimes even more than a show, Like sometimes it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
like people went to that show to like party almost, like they,
Yes.
maybe,
Yeah,
Yeah.
like there'll be some people, like some shows you go to, especially in regional towns, people will spend like more time at the bar than like, but they'll watch from the bar,
Mm.
like while they're queuing up, they'll just kind of turn around and be like, all right. And then they'll just happily order. Whereas in cities, like everyone's there for the show, but in towns, they're kind of there for, because like, oh, I fucking like this guy, but I like beer.
Yeah, and
And then-
in
Yeah.
clubs in America, they're like, you must drink. There's a 2-drink minimum, and people are like, oh, I just want to see the jokes, man. I don't want to drink.
yeah.
It's very
But
different.
in Australia, they're like, 2, is that all? They're like, maybe before the show. And then once the show
Oh,
starts,
thank
they'll
God. I thought
really
you said
crank
maximum.
out. Yeah.
I was, I always like, even on tour this last round, I was having a few times where you're like, you know, everyone comes to see you and it's very cool. And then you have a guy arguing with a waitress and then someone's ordering food and picking up their checks and all this stuff. And you're just like, this is the dumbest art form. Like what other thing, like, you know, has that kind of bullshit while the show's happening. Like,
It's so true. Like you go see like a theater
play,
show, like a musical, and no one's ever just getting up and going, oh, sorry, no, I'm coming through.
Paying for their checks and ordering too. It's like, you know, it's just such like a clown profession, right?
But it is, yeah.
But
Well,
I do more writing spots in the city. I'm getting better at trying to be better at like writing when you're doing headliners sets. But for me, I'm like, my system that I developed forever, that I'm trying to, you know, modify, but is way more like 3-4 spots a night, 10-minute sets, same joke,
Fuck.
you know,
That's
like
so
that
cool.
kind of stuff. Writing 2 hours in the morning, doing, you know, the first show, hopefully, you know, the 6th or whatever, do all stuff you kind of thought of that day, you know, weed it out by the 2nd, by the 4th show. Hopefully you have like 1 or 2 little things that are working by the end of the night and kind of repeat that process forever. But yeah,
That's impossible to do.
Yeah,
here.
that's the
I
thing.
think the
That
most gigs,
in one night's probably about a week's worth of gigs, like proper club gigs here, if you're not touring.
the most, like sometimes I'll do 3 of my own shows in a night, and that's like the most stage time.
Are you guys writing an hour a year then? It's crazy.
It's just
But
natural.
I only tour with like 35-40 minutes of material and just do a lot of crowd work because that's what like
that's
what goes viral and makes people come to my shows and stuff. So I just talk to the crowd a lot, and it's also there's less pressure as well because a festival show here only goes for 50 minutes pretty much. So like because there's like they do new shows every hour but a 10-minute turnover between
50's enough.
So I only tour like 35-40, and once you have like a good 20 and then you do it a bunch, that turns into 30. You keep adding little tags and stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I was saying? I do the opposite where I'll be in the city and it's all like whittling, right? Getting rid of every last word. And then you kind of hit the road and it's almost easier. So I would go, I'm like, oh, that's like you know what? That's a 1-minute joke, I think. Then I'd go to the road and I'd be like, maybe this is a 2-minute joke. Yeah. And then I'd come back to the city. I'm like, no, I was right. It's 1 minute.
Yeah.
On the road, you're adding all this extra stuff and it's killing. And you come back to the city and you're like, yeah, I know I was right the first time. Those not that great.
Yeah, my audience was doing some lifting there, you know.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that's also why that's why the greatest comics are American, because there's just a natural skill gap. Like there's a limit to how much you can train in other countries because you can't do that many gigs in a night.
Couldn't you just like, you need to have someone that just starts a club in the city that has 3 shows a night and then you do 2 or 3 shows,
but
right?
It's not
it's not a showcase.
Our biggest city has 6 million or 7 million people in it. Most of our cities have like 2 million people in it.
That's what Toronto is. Toronto has like a couple
I think there is room for like, if it was like 120 seats, I think there is room for something like that.
50.
I mean, something did start up recently in Melbourne, the Republic Bar or whatever it's called.
Yeah, there's a few going around. It's just like there's also so many comedians where we're from. Like there's quantity. Like it's hard to get spots. Like
that's true. And also,
quantity over quality. The gigs. There's so many shitty open mics. Like there's so many. If you want to go perform to 3 people and 10 comedians, you could do 20 gigs a night.
Yeah,
that makes you worth sometimes.
I really believe that. Like sometimes you'll do a spot in front of comedians and there'll be three normal punters, like normal audience members, and like if the comedians are laughing and the punters aren't, you're like, man, I'm crushing. I'm like, you're actually getting worse because that is not what a normal person thinks is funny.
Dude, whenever I write a joke and comedians laugh, I scrap the joke. I'm like, fuck that. But whereas a lot of comedians will be like, I'm crushing. Let's work on that. So my friends laugh.
Crushing your dreams, bro.
Yeah, but I was talking about with Lewis. I realized I'm one of 3 comedians touring the country at the moment because of COVID. Everyone else is pretty much trapped in Sydney and Melbourne. I see the same 3 people in every poster whenever I go. They're like,
Luke's had a combination of luck, but also going through hell to pull off the shows.
I had to go to hotel quarantine, and I've had to live out of where I live for like a month, just in hotels while I'm also paying rent at home. It's brutal.
That's tough.